Well, that was absolutely awesome. Like, seriously, oh my God, that was so good, so cool. What's up, everybody? I've literally just got back from watching Deadpool and Wolverine, and I am so excited to actually finally have come out of a Marvel movie for the first time in what feels like ages and be genuinely excited by what I've just seen. It was so good. Such an awesome movie. We're not going to give any spoilers away in this video, but we're just going to give my instant reaction to what I've just seen, and it's absolutely epic. Such a good film, finally, from Marvel. So many of the things that Marvel have been making for the last, basically since Endgame, has always felt like it's kind of fell short of the mark. It's either just not been able to live up to the kind of epicness that was in Endgame, and they kind of set the bar so high with the Infinity Saga that everything they kind of made since then just feels like it falls really flat, disappointing, or they just don't get the tone right, where there's too much humor or really bad humor, and the CGI is bad, and you just, all of these things where the writing was terrible, and you just kind of felt like they were just churning out content, especially with their Disney Plus shows. But now, finally, we actually have a decent movie with great characters, some absolutely awesome cameos and appearances. I promise you there will be so many surprises in this, that there were cameos of characters in there that I never saw coming and I never would have guessed that were actually in this film. And every single scene has something in it that keeps you hooked, either because there's a brilliant cameo of a character, there's just an epic action sequence, there's something that's like deeply emotional with the characters, or there's a brilliant joke that's told in there, or there's a great kind of like fourth wall, third wall, whatever it is, reference made by Deadpool to the audience that like laughs at previous things in the MCU. You know, it's just this constant kind of scene after scene of just something that appeals to you, whether it's because the humor is great and it makes you laugh, or the action is just brilliant and it kind of keeps you invested, or the characters are just kind of giving their emotional impact of it to give some more weight to the story. But the characters play off of each other so very well. Obviously with Deadpool, it's all about kind of the humor and being funny and making jokes and the speaking to the audience and all this kind of thing. But Wolverine kind of levels him off a little bit, so that actually Deadpool doesn't seem to be coming as quite as annoying, because I know like a lot of people find him to be a little bit like too much and a little bit jarring because of that. But Wolverine, because he's so like straight-laced as a character and is like ridiculously kind of harsh and almost severe and kind of strict and mean and aggressive and all this kind of thing, the level between the two of them just balances out really nicely, so that both of them get great screen time, but also great story time, and the characters actually become incredibly like impactful and serious. And this is the thing that's been really such a struggle. And by bringing these characters into the MCU is finally bringing some weight to the MCU, which has been missing ever since Endgame, where they kind of killed off some of their bigger characters with like Tony Stark and Iron Man. Obviously in Endgame didn't survive, neither did Black Widow. Thor just becomes an awful character after Endgame. So does the Hulk. I mean, arguably in Endgame he becomes a terrible character, and he's never really been my favourite anyway. Captain America goes off and retires. You know, all of these things that kind of finished off what were the Avengers for those 10 years that everybody loved so much. And every character that they've kind of brought out in Disney Plus shows and movies since then, well, they've kind of been B-side characters. You know, they've never been the headliners, with the exception of, say, like Doctor Strange and Ant-Man, who obviously had their own movies as part of the Infinity Saga. But were they ever like the headliners of the Avengers? No, they never were. And those movies, albeit I like them, they've never been the strongest characters or the strongest movies in Marvel Studios. But Deadpool like resurrected the X-Men franchise and actually made it brilliant. And albeit his second film probably obviously like wasn't as well received as the first, it was so refreshing, and his character is so loved by so many people that actually this brings audiences back to the MCU proper for the first time in years. And it delivers, and that is the key. It's not just, oh, let's just make another Deadpool movie and see what sticks. It's actually really good, and I loved the story. I'm not going to spoil it, I'm not going to go into what actually happens, but honestly, the characters that come out with this, it was always sort of like expected that there was going to be this whole kind of cinematic universe, multiverse based storyline going on. Like, why is the Wolverine in it when obviously we'd seen him die back in the Logan movie? Well, all of that is explained. It does go through and take the time to actually explain what's happening. We know from the trailers that the TVA is involved, and they are very heavily involved in it, but actually there is a weight to them that they bring into the story, and it makes it work really, really well. Albeit, I think, and they do actually reference this in the movie, is that it might be that the whole kind of time-traveling, multiverse, variant characters of what's happening in the MCU right now maybe has been a bit of a fail, and that perhaps they need to kind of like stop it now. I don't think they will, because of like Secret Wars and all those kinds of films that are expected to come out. I think there's still going to be that element of it, but it might be that they're just kind of almost bringing it back down to earth just a little bit. I think what's great about the fact they referenced it is that they are listening to the audience, and that they know really what's not working, and that's actually great to see, because when it comes to Disney obviously controlling all of this, what we've seen them doing with Lucasfilm and Star Wars is actually disrespecting the audience and going against what the audience want, and going out of their way to antagonize them. Whereas with Marvel Studios, I think there's just so much more care as to what the audience is saying, that actually when you give them that feedback, they listen to it and they understand it, and they know and understand the stories and the franchises and the characters so much better. And you know, you can trust Kevin Feige to kind of make the right decisions. I think he's slipped, obviously, since Endgame. It's difficult to obviously have what was such an epic saga with Infinity Saga, that, you know, how do you repeat that and how do you make it good? And I think, you know, genuinely they had tried a few different things and it just really hadn't really worked that well. And I still don't think that the MCU is like saved in any way. Maybe I'll discuss that in a bit more depth in another video. But what I do think is that with Deadpool is that they're bringing in a character that's already loved into the MCU, making the whole X-Men franchise relevant and giving them some screen time, which is, I think, what fans have been calling out for that for so long. Bringing the X-Men into the MCU, that has been something that the fans have asked for. And we always kind of expected that this movie, Deadpool and Wolverine, was gonna bring in a little bit of that and an element of that. And it definitely, I felt like it delivered. Without really saying why, I felt like it had done a great job. And even in the credits afterwards, a beautiful, actual touching moment that's involved, or which is included in the credits at the end of the movie, was actually really impactful and quite emotional. And it was just great fan service. I mean, people criticize things for having just fan service when they throw it into a movie, but fan service is a good thing. I don't think that's bad. It's giving audiences what they want to see. It's something that they can resonate with and connect to and talk about and love and enjoy. And, you know, you get those little references and those nods that, you know, Marvel fans love. And that's what's always been the success for Marvel Studios in the past. And it's not just a case of like bringing in new characters that no one's ever heard of, or that, you know, are scraping the bottom of the barrel when it comes to the characters that Marvel can offer. You know, with Deadpool, he's just so beloved and already had his kind of unique little franchise and his own little fan base. And with the Wolverine as well, bringing them together in this movie, it works so well. And yeah, it's always a bit like, how do you deal with the whole multiverse time travel elements of all of these things? But they don't spend a lot of time on it, but they do enough to kind of think, okay, that's fine. It makes sense. It works. This is the story that we've got. Let's go with it. Let's run with it. And let's have fun with it. And that is one of the biggest things about this movie. It's so much fun, and you can hear it when you watch it in the cinema. You know, the audience, they're laughing, they're enjoying it, they're understanding the references and the jokes, and they're having a good time with it. And that is just something that, you know, Marvel Studios has sorely missed. And I dare say that, for me at least, this is the beacon. Deadpool and Wolverine is the best thing that's come out since Endgame. It really is. It just hit the mark in every way, and all of the excitement and the expectation actually delivered on it. A lot of stuff that's been produced by Marvel Studios over the last few years, you kind of had this feeling of like you're going into the cinema just hoping not to be disappointed, and actually coming out feeling like some things were okay, some things were just absolutely terrible. But with this, there was just that little bit of excitement that I hope they don't mess it up, but you knew that they had the ingredients and the characters to make it work. And they really, really did. I mean, the trailers give quite a lot away, but not everything. Trust me, the trailers don't give everything away. I'll do a separate video where we go through some of the spoilers and talk about what's included in this. And there is a lot. I mean, like I said before, every other scene felt like there was a cameo or an Easter egg or an appearance by a certain person. And it kind of kept you guessing. You didn't know what you were going to see next. And also, as well as giving you fan service as a movie fan, it also gives you a lot of fan service as a comic book fan. There's a lot in it to go with. Again, some of it we've already seen, like alluded to in the trailers, and some of like the on-set photo shoots and stuff that have been released, and behind the scenes photos and footage and all this kind of thing. So some of it people already know about. I won't say it just in case, but ultimately they're okay. We kind of knew some things were going to appear in this movie, and they do. But there's so much more. There's so much more. And it's just, yeah, it just keeps you hooked scene after scene after scene, because there's always something that delivers. Every time you kind of get to a scene and you kind of think, where are they going to go with this now? Is this the moment in the movie where things kind of go a bit dull and kind of get a little bit quieter, and maybe there's a lot of dialogue, and maybe this is where, you know, where every movie kind of has like its ebbs and flows of tempo. And sometimes when you maybe get like halfway or two-thirds through a movie, the tempo kind of slips off and drops a little bit. But with this, it manages to keep its momentum, like always moving forward and always going. And the moment where you start to feel like, okay, this might be the bit where it just drops off a little bit, all of a sudden they'll just throw in a fight scene, and they'll just throw in a joke, or they'll just throw in a character that just keeps you hooked like the whole time. Like, it was such a good film. I'm so happy. Deadpool 2 probably wasn't like that great of the three, as I said before, but this one, especially with having Wolverine in it, just so good. And also, as Wolverine fans, you get a lot of fan service in this, especially if you're a comic book fan. You're gonna absolutely love this film. It's absolutely a must see. I feel like maybe this won't perform that well in the cinemas, simply because in the UK, at least, it's a 15. I think in America it's R-rated, so you know you're not going to get like the family audiences like you do with a lot of Marvel movies. So it is a blockbuster, but it's an adult blockbuster, so it could still do really well. But I feel like the audience that usually goes to watch Marvel movies, obviously this is going to be a much more, you know, it's a more mature audience. So, you know, maybe it won't get quite the numbers that would sort of suggest that it's really good. But actually, there's a reason for that. Obviously, there's physically less people that are able to go and watch this movie. But if you can, watch it. Go and see it. It's so worth it. It's genuinely, like, of all the things that Marvel Studios have brought out since Endgame, this is probably the only one where I would genuinely say, I'm struggling to find a fault with it. And it was so worth going to see. I'm so happy about it. Yeah, it's great to finally be excited about Marvel Studios in the MCU again. Finally. I don't think this is going to like magically solve the MCU and the problems that it's had. We've still got things coming out from Marvel that, well, you know, they're kind of questionable. I think in the last vlog I did, I talked about the fact that there's an Agatha show coming out. I'm hoping that that is maybe going to be like the last of the trash, really. I don't know who on earth is asking for an Agatha franchise. Like, I don't quite get that. I mean, you've got WandaVision, which was a show based on a character who was like, I call them B-level characters. They were never like the headline superstars of the Infinity Saga. So you've got rid of them. So now you've gone down a level. So now you're on like these B-level characters. Same applies to like Falcon, Winter Soldier. Great characters, but they were great characters because they were like antagonists or sidekicks or protagonists that worked alongside your A-listers. Now you're stuck on the B-list. Well, Agatha was the B-list character's bad guy. So you're even further down. In fact, you're practically off the scale in terms of the relevance and importance of this character. I don't really see why it needs to be made. So I don't think they're out of danger in any way, Marvel Studios. I think they still have things coming out which are not dangerous, that's the wrong word to use, but gimmicky and immature, and no one really wants to see it, and it's I don't know. I don't really understand why anybody would be excited about seeing it. But my hope is that, as I said before, if Marvel Studios listen to the audience, which this genuinely gives you a sense that they do, honestly, the things that are said in this film and the references that they make, certainly that Deadpool makes, it genuinely gives you the idea that they are paying attention. They are listening to what audiences are saying. And what I'm saying is, do more of this. It's not necessarily about Deadpool or Wolverine themselves, but it's characters that we love. It's characters that we know. It's not new characters that, you know, are just not interesting. It's characters and franchises that we want to see more of. We've been crying out for this for like such a long time. And now that you've finally done it and delivered, just do more of that and stop making the childish trash. I mean, seriously, we need more Deadpool and Wolverine as well. You know, again, without giving away what happens in the end, I think there's room for these characters, and you know, you're still dealing with a multiverse, so you know, whatever. But you know, those characters can still be involved going forward and make appearances, whether it's cameos or, you know, whole new movies for them, or whether they're part of the Avengers going forward. I mean, who knows? I think it's a bit of an open-ended kind of discussion really as far as what's going to happen with them in the future and where they might go. But realistically, I think they've got to. I mean, how can you not include them now? And also, the same applies to other X-Men characters. I mean, maybe just play off of the X-Men and let that be your kind of like forerunner. We've had the Avengers. We've had the Avengers, and the Avengers is certainly, in my mind, are the characters that we'd had with Black Widow, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hulk, and Hawkeye. Those, to me, you know, the A6 or the O6 or OG or whatever you want to refer to them as, it's those guys are the Avengers, and all but like 3 of them, well, yeah, half of them are basically gone. The other ones, I mean, Thor, I'm not interested in seeing Thor anymore. I'm not interested in seeing the Hulk either, to be honest with you. And I suspect we're not going to see Hawkeye again. His show was okay, but obviously with what happened to the actor, you know, I've heard and seen that he's recovering really well, and I hope that. But whether he wants to kind of go through doing Hawkeye again, whether he's physically capable of going through, how rigorous. Because the thing is with Hawkeye is he was never like a main, well, he was a main Avenger, but he's never been like that lead character. You know, we're talking coming up against Iron Man and Captain America as your 2 biggest ones, and those 2 have obviously definitely gone, as has Black Widow as well. So, you know, those to me are the Avengers, and I hate to say it, but I think those days have gone. I think what we've got left now is a chance and room for different groups to come out. And where you've got Deadpool and Wolverine and X-Men, I mean, that is a heck of a franchise to be able to work with. If you want team-ups, that's the one that people want. Personally, I'd also like Midnight Suns, and I feel like there is potential with that, where you've got characters that have been introduced, like Moon Knight. We know there's obviously a Blade reboot show coming out as well. You know, there are characters that would work really well as Midnight Suns, and I'd rather them go down that route. Avengers is great, and in the comics they do constantly change, and the roster is always evolving as characters come in and come out. But let's try something different, but we're still able to rely on this pool of great X-Men characters. So, you know, I don't think Deadpool's going to suddenly change anything or save anything, but I do think it gives you a bit of a glimmer of hope that there may be a way forward so that Marvel Studios can keep making stuff that's good. And that's what we want. We want to see stuff that's good. So my immediate reaction to having just walked out from, in a good way, finishing the movie and coming out of Deadpool and Wolverine, I absolutely loved it. It was just so good. I will do a separate video that goes through spoilers and talks about actually what it is in this movie that's got me so excited. And we'll go through, like, you know, the cameos and the character appearances and the storyline and all of these things. So I'll do that in a separate video. And then I might do a third one where we talk about how does this change the MCU going forward. So on that not so terrible disappointment, it is time to end. Thank you very much for watching and for listening, and please do give the channel a follow or subscribe if you can. Give the video a like, leave a comment, let me know what you think. Did you enjoy this movie? Have you seen it yet? Are you excited about it? What do you hope is going to happen going forward from now? I'm excited. I hope you are too. So with that said, we're all done, and I'll see you guys in the next video.